I never thought planting flowers could nearly destroy my family. My wife, Sarah, was 6 months pregnant, glowing, peaceful, full of life. We'd just moved into what we thought was our dream neighborhood. Quiet streets, manicured lawns, and neighbors who waved as they walked their dogs. But what we didn't know was that peace in this neighborhood came with rules. Rules written and enforced by one woman who called herself the guardian of order. Her name was Margaret Henderson, the HOA president, and before long she'd turn our lives into a nightmare. Before I tell you how far she went, tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from? I love seeing how far these stories reach. It all started with flowers. Sarah had planted a small bed of pink and white petunias near our front porch. They reminded her of her late mother, simple, bright, and full of hope. The next morning, an envelope was taped to our door. Violation notice. Apparently, our flowers weren't in compliance with community aesthetic standards. I laughed at first. Flowers? Really? But the laughter faded when I saw the fine, $150, and a warning. Further violations will result in escalating penalties. Sarah wanted to let it go. She said, "It's just flowers. Maybe we'll replant them." But I knew something wasn't right. I'd spent years as a county judge before retiring, and I'd seen this pattern before. Small power, abused in big ways. A week later, Margaret showed up at our doorstep. No greeting, no smile, just a clipboard in one hand and a phone camera in the other. "Mrs. Hill," she said coldly, "you've ignored HOA instructions. These flowers violate our bylaws." Sarah tried to explain, softly, politely, that she'd already submitted a request for approval. But Margaret cut her off. "I don't care. You'll remove them today or the fines will continue." She turned and walked away, snapping pictures as she went. That's when I realized this wasn't about flowers. It was about control. Over the next few weeks, more letters came. Fines for trash cans visible for more than 20 minutes. Fines for mailbox color mismatch. Even a fine for excessive garden decor. Each one harsher than the last. By the end of the month, we owed over $4,000 in HOA penalties. Sarah began to cry every time she saw another envelope. One morning, I found her sitting on the porch steps, clutching a letter. The fine had jumped to $12,500 with threats of legal action. I called the HOA office. Margaret answered herself. When I tried to reason with her, she said, "Your wife's attitude has consequences." Maybe she shouldn't have planted those flowers in the first place. Her tone, cold, calculated. I hung up, shaking. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She said she felt something wasn't right. Her chest hurt, and she was lightheaded. The next day, she collapsed in the kitchen. We rushed to the hospital. Doctors said the stress had caused complications with her pregnancy. As I sat beside her hospital bed, watching her hooked up to machines, I made a silent promise. This would end. I didn't care what it took. When we got home, I started collecting everything. Every letter, voicemail, photo, and email. I bought security cameras and pointed them at the yard, the mailbox, the street, and sure enough, Margaret came again. Camera in hand, snapping pictures, even leaning into our yard. A few days later, I caught her saying something on video that chilled me. "I don't care if she loses the baby. Maybe then she'll follow the rules." That was it. No more warnings. No more calls. I was done being polite. I hired a lawyer, an old friend, and we built a case, brick by brick. What Margaret didn't know was that I understood every inch of HOA law, property rights, and due process. I had written opinions on them. 3 months later, we were in court. Margaret looked smug. She had a stack of evidence, photos of flowers, trash cans, and mailboxes, and a smirk that said she'd already won. The judge entered. I stood beside my lawyer and watched as the proceedings began. Margaret's attorney argued that Sarah had willfully violated HOA regulations and that the $67,000 in fines were justified. Yes, $67,000 for flowers. I could hear the courtroom whisper. Then our turn came. My lawyer called me to the stand. I opened the binder I'd prepared, every notice, every letter, every video. We played the clip of Margaret's voice. "I don't care if she loses the baby." The courtroom went silent. Even Margaret's attorney lowered his head. The judge leaned forward and said, "Mrs. Henderson, is that your voice?" She stuttered, then went pale. My lawyer continued, calmly, surgically. He explained how the HOA violated procedural law, how fines exceeded legal limits, and how harassment endangered my wife's health. When the judge finally ruled, his voice was firm. The HOA's actions were abusive and unlawful. All fines are voided. Damages are awarded to the Hills in the amount of $200,000. Margaret's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Margaret was removed from the HOA board, permanently banned from holding any HOA position in the county, and fined personally for harassment and emotional distress. The community changed overnight. People who'd been silent before came forward, sharing their own stories. Turns out, Margaret had bullied others too. Elderly couples, single moms, new residents. The HOA board was rebuilt with fair, decent people. The new president apologized to every homeowner, including us. Sarah and I replanted our petunias. This time, the whole neighborhood helped. They bloomed brighter than ever. A few months later, our daughter was born, healthy, smiling, and strong. We named her Hope. Sometimes I still walk past those flowers in the morning light and think about everything we went through. How one person's cruelty nearly broke us, but also revealed how powerful truth can be when you stand your ground. People often ask me what I'd tell someone facing the same thing. I tell them this: document everything. Don't let fear silence you, because justice doesn't start in a courtroom. It starts the moment you decide, enough is enough.